guys, welcome back to Her Career, Her Way, a podcast all about empowering ambitious individuals by giving them the tools and strategies and having honest conversations to help you navigate your journey of building one's career in your 20s. And as a fellow 20-year-old, I know it can be chaotic. It's chaotic, it's hard, but we're going to get through it together. So, we're heading into the winter months, which is a little bit daunting and quite frankly, is a little bit stressful for me. I mean, daylight savings has just hit and it's 4 p.m. in London and it is pitch black dark. And all you want to do is kind of go on the couch, queue up some Netflix, binge watch the Gilmore series, and it's really hard to feel motivated to move. And that voice saying, you'll just start in January, right? New year, new me. I mean, in a study, it's shown that 58% of Americans are less active in the winter months, which I can totally understand. But today, we are not waiting. Today, in the darkest months, while everybody else is hibernating, we are going to start your winter arc. And this is going to be your competitive advantage. It's common in the winter months to feel a little bit more down and a little bit more, your mood's a bit lower, there's less sun, the days are shorter. It's easy to just kind of want to stay at home. And there's this thing called the SAD, which is the seasonal affective disorder. And I definitely am not diagnosed with it, but I definitely display some of the symptoms where everything kind of feels very heavy. And even the things that I love, reading, going out with friends, doing my podcast, even, it feels hard. It feels like a big weight that I have to do. Whereas, I don't know, in the summer or in the lighter months, I feel a bit more energized and I feel, oh yeah, let's go out, let's celebrate, whatever. But it's hard because it's cold outside and I don't really want to spend my days outside. I mean, I was eating a sandwich yesterday and I wanted to be outside because it was nice and, a little bit sunny, but it was freezing and I ended up going inside. And I also kind of feel myself getting caught in a cycle in the winter months of, you know, constantly talking about the gloomy weather and wanting to stay in and feeling unmotivated and and then I talk about the gloom again and it's on repeat and I'm just stuck in this toxic cycle. And to be fair, I am in London in the UK, so you know, you do end up talking about the weather a lot. It's just kind of socially acceptable to talk about. But being caught in that cycle is what I'm meaning of just constantly kind of just feeling down. And I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but hopefully you can. And then also the seasonal affective disorder that I mentioned, it affects millions of people. And so basically what the seasonal affective disorder is, which is called SAD for short, which is funny because you are sadder during these months. Well, at least I am. And what it happens to your kind of physiology is that you produce less serotonin, your vitamin D is deficient, and you overproduce melatonin. So basically, all of the things that are kind of making you happy and, making you feel energies are reduced. And with melatonin being overproduced, you tend to feel more sleepy. So it's, your body is telling you you want to sleep. And biologically, we are meant to kind of, rest more during these time periods. I mean, look at bears, they go into hibernation kind of during these winter months. And so it's definitely not something to beat yourself up about and, have grace that during these darker months, it's harder to feel motivated. But here's the kicker is that having this knowledge gives you power to do something about it. I'm going to say that again. Having knowledge about this gives you power to do something about it. So let's get you unstuck. So the reality is in winter is that your mood is a little bit lower. And this is attributed to the seasonal affective disorder. I don't know if any of you've heard about it, but it's short for SAD, which is funny because I definitely do feel sadder in these months. And basically what it does is that your body produces lower serotonin, you have vitamin D deficiency, and you produce more melatonin. AKA, everything that makes you happy is kind of a bit lower. Overproducing melatonin, which neutralizes your sleeping, it means that you want to sleep more. Basically, with all this information, I want you to give yourself some grace because we are biologically disposed to, be a bit more tired during these months and a bit, have more rest time. I mean, bears go into hibernation. It's natural. But here's the kicker. Knowing this gives you power. I'm going to say it again. Knowing this gives you power. Knowing that you are tired, more tired during these months, how can you change from that? How can you not limit yourself to this belief? And I get it. It's harder during these months. I mean, things that bring me so much joy, like doing this podcast even, or reading or going out with friends, seems a lot harder. Even waking up in the morning seems a lot harder, which for me, I'm pretty good at waking up. So I don't, it's hard, but I want you to kind of realize this. And, there's the phenomenon of the new year, new me in January when you have your New Year's resolution. But kind of why are we waiting till January? I mean, we are losing 6 to 8 weeks of potential momentum if we're just waiting for January to happen. And I've also kind of caught myself in a toxic cycle of, talking and complaining, talking about the gloomy weather and then talking how I'm feeling unmotivated and how I just want to stay inside and it's cold. And then I go on to talk about the weather again. And to be fair, in London, it's a very common phenomenon to kind of complain about the weather. I mean, it's a very socially acceptable topic. However, it is a toxic cycle because I'm just stuck in this self limiting belief. Here's the turning point. I can do things to get out of this funk. I can buy a hatch light to have more sunlight when I wake up in the morning. I can talk to a friend about, feeling this unmotivated feelings. I can actively seek out inspiration to feel more energized. So, what I recognized is when I'm waiting for January to start, or if I'm constantly in that complaining loop, I'm giving winter the permission to win, to say that I need to stay home, I need to do less, I need to whatever it is. But what if I could flip this? So today's episode is all about kind of the 4-step winter arc framework career edition. So let's get into it. Step one is we're going to audit your life. So we're going to not judge ourselves. We're going to reframe that. And instead, think of yourself as kind of like a researcher gathering data. Learn. There is no wrong decision. So kind of question yourself, where are you feeling stuck? I know that I've felt stuck, going to the same cafe, doing the same routine, getting the same coffee order, whatever it is, same scroll pattern. Just notice kind of where you're stuck. And then also notice, where are you feeling drained? Are you saying yes to everything? Are you saying no to everything? Are you kind of surrounding yourself with people or things that are draining you? And then that also leads into the third one, which is, who are you surrounding yourself, which I just said. What are you consuming? Where's your environment? Is there energy givers or are there energy takers? And so I kind of have recognized that, as I briefly mentioned, that I am prone to stay in the same routine. I kind of get up every morning, I go to the gym, I come back home, I grab a coffee, and I go to the same cafe. I reread books, I watch the same movies, and that's all right. However, it is the same thing over and over again. And when you're doing the same thing over and over again, for me at least, I feel less inspired and it can affect my motivation levels. And so it's just kind of important to kind of do this little audit to see kind of where you are staying stuck and then where you can change. And this leads me to step two, which is start dreaming. And so I want you to kind of combat that perfectionism, which I've talked about in another episode. So definitely listen to that. And just kind of dream of what you want. Create a vision board. And this doesn't have to be like a forever contract. And I know a lot of people do vision boards at the beginning of the year or, maybe during like a birthday or whatever, but you can do a vision board anytime. And honestly, I think updating your vision board constantly is a good thing because things change and it's important to kind of go with the changes. And so use this vision board as kind of like a compass and not, a cage that you have to confine yourself in. Also, something that I noticed is that fear really stops you from achieving your dreams. And I've talked about this a lot about what fear is and how it kind of controls you. But kind of ask yourself, what are you scared of? What you're scared of is normally the things that you want most. And so kind of just realize, what are you scared of? Are you scared to, do something new? Are you scared to try a new activity? What happens when you actually do that? what happens when you start a job that you didn't think that you could ever do? What happens when you start connecting with other people? What happens when you DM someone on LinkedIn for a coffee chat in an industry that you've really been wanting to understand? And so when we kind of procrastinate and have that perfectionist mentality, these are kind of safety mechanisms. And they're keeping you small. They are keeping you from going to that unlimited potential that you can achieve. And so stop trying to be perfect, stop procrastinating and just dream and do. And so I challenge you to kind of create a Pinterest board and kind of have your 6 categories. I know we're talking all about careers, but I also feel like it's really important to have all the other kind of aspects of your life full as well, because this inspires your career. This builds your dream life that you want to live. And so in your kind of Pinterest board and vision board, you kind of have your career aspects. So, for mine, it's looking at, what I want to do in university and what my next job might look like. And then for social, who do I want to hang out with? What do I want to do? Do I want to go to Christmas markets and things like that? Have flat parties, go to dinner? What do you want to do with your friends? And then 3 is health. So, kind of what movement do I want to incorporate? I love Pilates and I love running, and I'm a little bit into strength training. And then also, how do I want to nourish myself? In the colder months, definitely lots of soup. And then 4 is kind of family. I want to make sure to call my parents every week and stay in touch with them and text my sisters and whatnot. And then 5 is mindfulness, which I think is really important. I definitely want to do more episodes about how to be mindful and how that's so beneficial for your career, because I truly it is. Meditation, having that mindfulness right when I wake up and right when I sleep is really important for me. And then also reading to help kind of make me smarter, develop my intellectual brain. And then journaling has also been such an important thing for me. I mean, it's just such a good way to reflect. And I want you to kind of just spend 20 minutes doing this, kind of thinking about all these aspects of your life. And if you don't really want to visualize it, that's okay. Just kind of bullet point list what you want. Or if you're more kind of visual, then create a little Pinterest board with pictures on it. But really get concrete and make it valuable to you. That's really the point of this exercise. Once you start realizing what your dreams are, then you can act on it. And now moving on to step 3, which I honestly think is probably one of the most important ones, which is act as if. And this is a concept that I've recently started. And so, first of all, I just want to talk about how the brain literally receives 11 million sensory information and stimuli per second. 11 million stimuli per second. That's insane. That's insane if you think about it. However, your prefrontal cortex processes only 50 to 100 bits of that information. And kind of what makes the cut, what it is prioritizing, are the habits, beliefs, and past experiences that you have had. And so basically, it is processing the things that you already are inherently believing. So, if your belief is, I am unmotivated, or I can't get up in the morning, or I am feeling so down and I don't want to do anything, that is what is going into your brain when you have those 11 million stimuli. And something that I learned from the Jamie C podcast, which I think everybody should listen to, I mean, it's such a great podcast, is that she talks about kind of that 95% of your brain is subconscious. So basically, only 5% is your prefrontal cortex that you are conscious of, but 95% is unconscious, which is also crazy to think about. So, this is why it's so important to rewire your operating system. And the concept that she talks about is kind of the quantum leap. And I definitely am going to link it in the show notes below because she talks about it so much more and in detail. But basically, the kind of the headline knowledge of what I got out of this is that your subconscious doesn't really know the difference between reality and vivid imagination. And so when you're acting as if, it trains your brain to kind of prioritize those new possibilities. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of practical application just for your career because I really love learning through examples. So basically, just think if you already had that job interview, what would that version of you do today? It's not really toxic positivity, saying like, oh, yeah, I've already had the job interview, I'm going to be fine. No, it's basically strategic attention rewiring. When you act as if, when you emulate that person that you want to be, you are already believing in those things. You are already taking in who you are and that version of yourself, and you're putting it out there in the universe. And so when I tell myself that I have already gotten that interview, I have already connected with that person on LinkedIn, I've already filmed that podcast episode and it went wonderful. I'm putting that out there. And then what that's doing is that my belief systems are changing, or then your habits can change. And then when you have that 11 million stimuli that's going around you and you're only taking in that 50 to 100 bits of that information, you are already changing your beliefs. You're taking in those new beliefs into your consciousness. And so then you start realizing, oh, yeah, that episode did go well. Or, oh, yeah, I just saw that person on LinkedIn and I connected with them. It's just like things come easier for you because you're putting that into your consciousness. So that's why step two was important, to use that Pinterest board, use that vision board, and, maybe share it with a friend so that you can stay accountable. But you are already putting that into your subconscious because that's 95%. And then when you are kind of looking at things and you're taking in that information, you will start to see those things coming into fruition. Something that was really interesting me the other day is that I was telling a friend how I don't want to decorate my room because I'm going to be moving to another place. Why decorate it? That's just wasting time. That's wasting money. But something that she said to me was that, why are you waiting to like decorate when you move? Why not do it right now? Like, why wait? Why wait? And I didn't have an answer to that. Why am I waiting? I'm always constantly waiting. Every single time I move, I say that. But why can't I just make this my home now? Why can't I act as if this is my home? Because it is. I mean, I've been here for almost a year and a half and I still haven't decorated. And so I think I'm going to change that a little bit. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be expensive, but maybe printing out my vision board and plastering it onto my walls just to see it. So I think that's another concept of, why are you waiting for you to become that version? Why can't you act as if it has already happened? Because that is where you can emulate that version of yourself that you want to become. Now, as I always do in Her Career, Her Way, I have to get a little bit practical. And so when you're acting as if, it is also so important to still take action on that. So you still need to have aligned action and active trust. And I talked about this in my episode of Another Year Around the Sun, of how to do this and what I mean by that. So definitely check that out. But basically, visualization without action is just daydreaming, but visualization with action, that's manifestation. And this leads me on to the last step, which is step 4, which is start small to achieve big. And this is where kind of the compounding effect comes in. And I've definitely talked about this in kind of like the financial aspect, but it also happens in your day to day life. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, which is definitely a book to read, I highly recommend it, is he says that 1% better each day leads to 37 times better by the end of the year. So every little thing that you're doing today, every little thing that you do leads to a greater impact in the future. And small beats perfect every single time. So, what are kind of the micro actions that you can take? Taking 10 minutes to just update your LinkedIn profile. Is it kind of reaching out to one connection on LinkedIn? Is it reconnecting with somebody through a DM? Is it waking up 5 minutes earlier each day? Is it doing a 20-minute at home workout? I think it's so important to just implement these micro habits because they will lead to such a greater change. And also, these micro habits feel less overwhelming, which makes us want to do them more, and then we can commit to it easier. Something that I love to do is journal, because it takes kind of all of these steps in that I've just talked about. And it's like habit stacking. Because when I'm journaling and I'm reflecting what I did today, that's auditing my life and where maybe I'm staying stuck. Or maybe I'm writing an as if entry. I'm emulating that version of myself. And it just gives me so much more mental clarity. And I love journaling. And it's also a little micro habit to do too, because I do it every single day for, like 20 minutes or something, or even 5 minutes if I don't have the time. And so basically, the smallest steps breaks down the paralysis of needing to choose the right thing to do. So there really is no perfect first step. There is only your first step. And so the winter arc really isn't about grinding 24/7. No, you definitely still need balance. It's about having intentional micro momentum. And it's utilizing these kind of more slower paced months to really do things that will help you grow and achieve your dreams. And it's okay to still have hard days. It's okay to feel unmotivated. I get it. And you should give yourself grace for that. I mean, things are hard. Progress is not linear, especially when you're kind of feeling more down. But the small actions that you take can help reclaim that agency and you can take action. I honestly think that kind of the winter months are a blessing because it's time for you to kind of look inward and reflect and see how you can change. Because in reality, you probably are going to be spending a bit more time at home. And how can you kind of utilize this to grow? How can you kind of take back your power when things are hard? And honestly, when you do things that are hard, that is where growth lies. So I know I just went through a lot of information, so I'm going to do a little bit of a recap. So things to do this week are kind of audit one area of your life. Where are you feeling stuck? Maybe do a 15-minute journal entry. And then step two is kind of create your Pinterest board or vision board. Write down a few things in each of those 6 categories. And then kind of do an as if statement. Share it with a friend. Act as if you've already achieved what you want from your Pinterest board goals. And then finally, kind of choose one micro action that you can do daily for 7 days. Maybe it's waking up 5 minutes earlier. Maybe it's kind of doing a journal entry or something. I know I bang on about journaling. I just think it's wonderful. I definitely want to film an episode about the impacts of journaling because I think it's transformative, but whatever. I hope this episode was helpful for you and definitely share your winter art goal with me. DM me on Instagram and or use the hashtag winter art challenge. I'd love to see kind of what you guys are doing. Maybe it'll give me a bit of inspiration. I just want to leave you with you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start today. Start today. Do those little micro habits, build that micro momentum and utilize these winter months to really fuel yourself. And just think about it. While everybody else is kind of waiting for the ball to drop on January 1st or in their hibernation mode, you're already in motion. And that's not just a winter arc, that's a life arc. And it starts right now. So definitely subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Share this episode with somebody who maybe needs a little bit more motivation or encouragement during these winter months. And let's make winter your comeback season. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope you loved this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.